Oh, I need that. I so need that. Stop right there. Do you really need all that? Samsung makes some great Android tablets, but the lineup is, getting a little confusing, and paying for the biggest and the best might be overkill. So today we're gonna break it down. What features are you giving up by dropping down in price to Samsung's other tablets? So I'm structuring it like this: good, better, best. With the good being the light line of Samsung tablets, the better being their FE line of tablets, and the best being just called S, like the S11 or the S11 Ultra. And yes, I'm using a pizza analogy here. They say never make a video when you're hungry, but here we are. Hey, Raspberry doing this tech today. Cut, this theme song isn't gonna work, guys. Here is my too long didn't read version of this video. I think that the lowest end S10 Lite version of this tablet is pretty good, especially for art. They just updated it, and while it doesn't have all of the bells and the whistles, this is still a good beginner's tablet. The FE, a little bit better in every way. Better screen, better processor, but it's closer in quality to the Lite than it is to the big anchovies, the S10, which has all of those fancy features included. Also, if you're wondering how these Samsung products compare to other Android tablets I've tested, over on my website, I rank all of the tablets I reviewed, so go check that out for more info. So let's start with our first category here. Let's look at build quality. All three of these are really well built. The back looks very, very similar from tablet to tablet. We're talking about an aluminum build with glass fronts, squared off edges. In fact, the Lite and the FE are really easy to mix up. They look almost identical. My S11 here is the Ultra. It's really big. I could tell that apart, but also it's just gonna be thinner than the other tablets. Now these tablets do come in different colors. Usually it's just gray or dark gray, but the Lite comes in this nice ruby red. I think the ruby red looks really good. I got the boring gray one. Regrets! These tablets do come in different sizes. All of them come in a standard 11-inch screen size, but there's a bigger 13-inch version of the FE and a very, very big version, almost 15 inches, of the Ultra S11. Having a larger screen is a really nice luxury. If you plan on using this with a drawing app like Krita, which is based off the desktop app, having that bigger screen helps you because the interface takes up less of your drawing space. But other art apps like iBest Paint X or High Paint are pretty minimal, so the screen size just isn't quite as important. Clip Studio Paint, my favorite app to draw in, the one I use the most and you're seeing in the background of this video a lot, has two interfaces. One is their desktop interface, the other one is their like simpler, streamlined Android interface, which is what I use mostly, and every so often I jump in if I need to use a specific feature that's not available. And that more minimal interface does also tend to work on pretty much any size tablet. Now, if you want to read on your tablet or play a game with on-screen controls, I actually like the smaller screens, those 11-inch screens, a little bit better. They're just more comfortable to hold for long stretches. Now, if you saw any of my unboxing videos, you already know that none of these Samsung tablets nowadays ship with chargers, which is kind of a bummer because your little phone charger that you have sitting around probably isn't going to take advantage of the fast charging abilities that these tablets have. And that is where today's sponsor comes in, Anker, who sent me two of their latest products, the Anker Prime 160 watt charger and the Anker Prime DL 7400 docking station. The Prime charger is the world's most compact 160 watt multi-port charger. When I got this, I was like, I'm gonna put this in the kitchen where me and my wife and my daughter are always fighting over who gets to charge their phone or their iPad on the counter. But after unboxing it and testing out here in my office, I'm realizing how useful it would be to have up here instead. I might have to pick up a second one of these. It supports three-way fast charging, so I can charge my MacBook Pro, my iPad Pro, and my phone all at the same time at the same speed as their original chargers. This charger delivers a full 160 watts of total power. Any single port on this can power up to 140 watts at once. Next up is the Anker Prime DL 7400 docking station. Having this upstairs might be the reason I moved the charger downstairs for the family. This is the world's first triple display charging dock that can give you a stable 8K signal. This is wild because I can connect up to three 4K displays to my MacBook Pro with this thing. Technically, it's two 4K displays and one 8K display. Internally, this dock has the DL7400 chip that meets the demands for those high resolutions and also those high refresh rates. Now, this is going to come in super handy for me when I'm testing out all of my drawing tablets. But what I really love is how it lets me do all of this while keeping my desk clean and cable free. This dock also has the fast charging and data transfer that Anker is known for, in a great design that has a little 2.26-inch LCD display. That little display gives me charging, data transfer, and screen information all in one place. So whether you're looking for a great 3-way 160-watt charger or an amazing dock that's going to clean up your desk and get you wire-free, Anker's new products are great. Check out my link down below in the description to learn more and get in on their discounts today. So what about the screens on these devices? This is where we start to see some real differences. The good news is Samsung is one of the best display makers in the world, so even their bad screens are pretty good. The Lite has a 90 Hz TFT LCD display, where the FE has a 90 Hz IPS LCD display. And they look very similar with the same background on both of these tablets. The color representation is so close. Where the FE does pull ahead is in viewing angles. It's just a better screen that way, and it doesn't discolor as much as you tilt it up and down. Now the S11 has a 2x AMOLED 120 Hz display. This is a big jump up in quality. The blacks are deeper. The highlighted areas are punchier. The peak brightness is also much higher than the other two screens, totally making this usable outside. One downside of the S11's display is something called OLED flicker. I can't see it in person, but it definitely shows up on camera. And some folks get headaches looking at OLED monitors or screen for extended periods of time because of that flicker. It's one of those things that's never bothered me, but something to be aware of. While you don't need the AMOLED display to make art, it's a nice upgrade. One thing I like about these displays is that they're all shooting for a higher refresh rate. A lot of lower end screens are 60 Hz. 90 Hz is going to give you smoother animations, and 120 Hz on the S11 is even smoother still. All right. Let's go to the next section. Let's look at what's inside these tablets, because another difference is the processors. We have an Exynos 1380, an Exynos 1580, and a Dimensity 9400 Plus. One of the biggest disappointments I heard from people in the comments of my FE review video is this processor. It is better than what ships with the Lite, but not by much, and people were hoping for something better for that price. Now the S10's 9400 Plus processor is great. It's really powerful, it's efficient, it's fast, and that means that you're going to be getting a tablet that is going to last you for years and years and years into the future before you need to upgrade. Jumping over to this website, this is the Nano Review benchmark site. We can take a look at these processors and see how different they really are. The 1580 is a bump up from the 1380, with the CPU score going up about 15%-ish. Not bad, but you compare the 1580 to the 9400 Plus, that's a huge jump up from 50% to 99. A really big upgrade. RAM is another important factor. We have 6 GB, 8 GB, and 12 GB respectively, although you can get more on the Lite and FE if you jump up to a larger storage configuration. Why is RAM important? Because when you run out of RAM or when it fills up, art programs tend to crash. When I'm drawing, I tend to make canvases that are about the size of my screen. In that case, 6 GB of RAM is just plenty. You are going to be able to get dozens and dozens of layers that way, and you're going to be perfectly stable. Where RAM becomes a bottleneck is with larger canvases. If you're drawing on a high-res 330 ppi comic book page, for example, or drawing pages for a book, magazine illustrations, stuff that has to be a really big file size, that's when you're going to want to have more RAM. Numbers and benchmarks, they're all fine and good, but they don't really tell the whole story. They just start to show you some of the trends, and the distance in terms of performance from the Lite to the FE is a heck of a lot closer than the distance from the FE to the S11. So what's going to help tell more of the story here? Let's stress test these tablets a little bit. I'm going to open up Clip Studio, make a new canvas. Let's just go with the resolution of the Tab S10 Lite. So we're talking 2112 pixels by 1320 pixels. We're going to use the pencil tool at about 50 pixels in width, and we're we're just going to start shading. So even as I add layers, this is the kind of performance I'm used to seeing on these tablets. But as your canvas gets bigger, it takes more RAM and processing power to use the app. So let's do this. Let's make a much larger canvas. Let's go 5,000 pixels by 5,000 pixels. Now with the same brush, I can see the slowdown because it's trying to render more pixels at once. And that's where we start to see the lag. Let's jump over to the S11 Ultra. 5,000 by 5,000 pixel canvas. I start drawing with the same size brush as I was using before, and you can see it's just performing so much better. Now let's move that brush size up to 500 pixels. Let's look at all three of these at the same time, and you can see the kind of lag that we're getting. Let's look at all three of them again, but this time I have moved that brush size up to 1,000 pixels. Now you're starting to see some real hardcore lag kicking in. And just for fun, let's move this thing up to a 2,000 pixel brush size and let's start drawing on these tablets. Let's see what happens. Now, clearly this is not a scientific test. I wish I could make my hand move at the same exact speed from take to take. But I think what it does show is that the FE and the light in terms of performance are a lot closer together than the FE to the S11 Ultra. So the reason I'm doing this is when you pick out one of these tablets, what you need to ask yourself is, how big of a canvas do I usually draw on? I think that is going to be the biggest differentiator here. Are you drawing on something that needs to be really big and go to print? Are you drawing posters, or are you just doing stuff for social media, stuff to put on your screen, or are you just practicing and learning drawing? If you just need it to be the size of your screen, you're probably going to be fine with the lower end tablets. But if you need to go bigger, that's where that S11 Ultra, S11 are going to be great. The last thing we're going to talk about is the pen, and I saved this for last not because it's the most important thing, but because the pen between all of these devices is basically using the same technology under the hood. Now the S11 has redesigned their pen, but actually it's the same technology. The only difference they've really made here is they've made it easier to tilt the pen. They've changed the actual shape of the pen tip. So when I'm using it in Clip Studio with that pencil tool that we were using a little bit earlier, you can say you can shade with it really well. The reason you can't shade with the other pens isn't because they're not capable of doing it, but the pen shape is just wrong. It's got a more rounded tip, so you can't tilt it as much. These pens are completely interchangeable, and they feel identical when you use them. If I use the pen that came with the light on the S11 Ultra, it works fine, it works great, it gives me the same exact line. If I use the newfangled pen from the S11 Ultra on the light or the FE, it works fine, it works great. In fact, you get the same exact shading because it's not the pen that's doing it, it's just the shape of the pen that's doing it. And if you've seen me review any of these devices before, you know I am a big fan of the S Pen. Underneath the hood, this is running Wacom's technology, so you're gonna get really good pen pressure, you're going to get really good accuracy, and you get really smooth lines. Probably the smoothest lines that you're going to find on an Android tablet outside of Wacom's own Android tablets. So that is my pizza box math and the differences here. What do you think? I especially want to hear your thoughts on the processors and the differences between what you're going to find on those two lower end tablets and what you find on the higher end tablet, and if that changes your decision as to what you buy. Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you all for watching. I'll talk to you in a couple of days.